Wednesday's chapter is Exodus chapter 2. And now the stage has been set. God's people are in trouble. They're slaves in a foreign land under a leader who's actively seeking to destroy their future. They need rescue. As Pharaoh's order to kill all male Hebrew babies was in force, a couple had a son and tried to hide the child, but after a few months just no longer could. The strategy was to put the 3-month-old in a floating basket among the reeds of the river. Now, was this a plan to get the baby before this princess that we'll see in this chapter? Was this something done at God's prompting? Was this just a desperate attempt? We don't know. But it wasn't out of a lack of concern for the child. The older sister was tasked with watching the basket. After all, the parents had to work. And it just so happens that Pharaoh's daughter finds the child. The sister of this infant bravely suggests, "Do you want me to find you a Hebrew woman to nurse the child for you?" And the mother of this baby ends up getting paid to care for her son until the child is weaned. And the name of the child is Moses. It relates to the Hebrew word for to lift out. And so Moses was lifted out of the river, safely brought into the household of Pharaoh, where he would have access to privilege and training and education, considering he also seemed, as when we read in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 24, the author there says, Moses still retained that identity. He knew that he was an Israelite, or at least that Egypt wasn't his true home, and the household of Pharaoh was not his, at least not his core identity. Now, it's interesting to me to note that other ancient Near Eastern cultures had stories of those who were abandoned and taken from the river and go on to be heroes. And so, again, culturally, Moses is definitely being shown to be the one who would be the answer to the people of Israel's call to God for deliverance. And then in this chapter, the scene shifts forward about 40 years. Moses, grown up, been part of Pharaoh's household, he looks to reconnect with his heritage and his people to see how they live, and he's disturbed. Disturbed enough that when he saw an Egyptian taskmaster or supervisor beating an Israelite slave, he kills the Egyptian, hides the body. Now, some think Moses already had this sense that he was called by God to free the people of Israel and was attempting to do this by his own power and strength. But the text doesn't give that specific impression. It's possible, but it's not required. What the text shows is that the Israelites didn't see Moses as their rescuer, at least not as of yet. So Moses has to flee because his murder was not just a crime because it's murder, but culturally, it was more an affront to Pharaoh's power and authority. He killed a representative of Pharaoh and Pharaoh's oppression of the Israelite slaves. You kill a slave driver, you kill that person, it might give slaves an idea to rebel. Moses flees to Midian. He helps some women out at a well and ends up with a wife with whom he has a child. And Moses, we see, settling into a life as a shepherd, away from Egypt, away from his people, expecting to never go back. And we see that in the name of his firstborn son. More time passes in this chapter. The Pharaoh, when Moses killed the Egyptian, is dead. Israel is still crying in slavery for rescue. And the text shows as the chapter ends, the time is now right, meaning God was about to fulfill his promise to Abraham of rescue of his descendants from Egypt. One thing I want to note here, Jethro is considered or called a priest of Midian. Now, it's not a priest of Midian as in that was the name of the god. Midian is the name of the place. He's the priest of that area. And the text is suggesting that he's a worshiper of Yahweh. And if that seems strange to us, we need to remember the Midianites are the descendants of Abraham through Keturah, his second wife, Genesis 25. So, thought for today, unexpected heroes. Just think so far in these two chapters who the unexpected heroes are. Moses is an unexpected hero, not so much for Israel, but to the women at the well. Here's a stranger who defends them from these shepherds. His sister, who goes bravely to Pharaoh's daughter. The mother of Moses. The midwives. Even Pharaoh's daughter. Most of the heroes to this point have actually been women. Moses has done little. And I bring this to our attention is that these are not people, like a young girl, the powerless midwives in the face of Pharaoh, not the ones we would expect. And that should give us courage. Because who might God be calling you to be an unexpected hero to today? It doesn't have to be a grand act or a grand gesture, just a simple act of blessing someone else in Jesus' name. Doing right by loving God and loving your neighbor as you love yourself and giving God the credit. I just offer this as food for thought today. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you. May the Lord be gracious to you. And today, would you know his peace? God bless.